Here's how Baylor is just digging their own grave with the Mack Rhoades situation.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Game Time and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in the world. I'm your host, Cam Stuart of Rogue Media Network. Appreciate you guys making it your first listen today and every day. And we are going to continue on with the Mack Rhoades situation, but kind of looking at it from a different angle. Baylor really put themselves in a corner when it comes to this Mack Rhoades situation, and it all revolves around the football program. Plus, we heard one Baylor star sticking up for Dave Aranda, and in return, Dave Aranda said, yeah, we put a lot on his plate because of our play this year. And Tarps off. A lot of us thought it was good, except for a couple of people in Section 310, and apparently Dave Aranda. The bizarre answer he gave about finally getting some fan support. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. We start where we start. It is the big news around Baylor the last week, not even the last week. Obviously, Mack Rhoades has stepped away from the athletic department in his role as AD and as the CFP committee chair. There's all kinds of bad that comes with that, right? Like it's a distraction. It's another bad headline for Baylor. And there's all kinds of confusion when it comes to that athletic office, right? There's all kinds of confusion now. But I think what has kind of not been talked about a lot is that Baylor really put themselves in a corner here in a bad way, and it really wasn't necessary. Like, if I had to tell you what I thought about this on November 18th, regardless of how this investigation, the second investigation, shakes out, I think Baylor's handled this really poorly overall. And the big reason why is they've put a timetable on Mack's return. You know, last week, which would have been this news dropped on November the 13th, they said 28 days and he'll be back. 28 days, 4 weeks, for those of you who know that. So that brings him back December 11th. That is like the worst possible timing. When you've got a coach that's on the hot seat that any day now could be fired by any other program with an athletic director, to say that we're not going to have our AD back until December 11th is like a death sentence. It truly is. Like, and I get it. You know, I don't know if an interim AD can fire a coach or not. I don't know if everyone's on the same page enough to do that, just in general at any university. But you've put these interims in an impossible position that they need to be the ones taking the phone calls as athletic director for 4 weeks. And then you're behind the 8 ball all the way around if you need to get a new head coach. Like, let's play this out. 4 weeks, at this point, almost three and a half weeks. In 3.5 weeks, you're going to make a decision as to whether you are keeping your athletic director or not. But by then, everyone else will have hired their coach on Monday or Tuesday of that week. In some cases, before that, because the regular season ends a week and a half before Mack Rhoades is slated to come back. And in the worst case scenario, you're waiting the 4 weeks and then you're firing Mack anyway. And then you're behind the 8 ball and hiring a coach and an athletic director because you need to get an AD first. This seems crazy, I know, but no coach is going to want to come here when there's no AD in place. They don't know who they're working for. You know, and no AD is going to want to go to a place where he can't pick the head football coach. It's totally backwards. Baylor's pigeonholed themselves into this 4-week thing, and it doesn't really work for any side. Because first off, from all that we're hearing, Mack Rhoades is going to need some help here. Like on a fundamental human level, not just like he needs some help finding a coach. Like, no, he needs some help here. And he needs to get this figured out. And so to put him in a 4-week window is A, not good for him in figuring it out, and B, it's really bad for you in figuring out the future of your football program. Because unless you're looking to hire Baylor alum Brian Newberry at Navy, maybe you are, everyone else is going to be done with their regular season. And Penn State and Florida and UCLA and Oklahoma State and Auburn are going to have hired their coach. Probably Arkansas as well will have already hired their coach by the time your AD even gets back to his office, if he gets back at all. Like, this seems so simple. You should have put him on indefinite leave and said, hey, we can make the decisions here until you are back. Or if it's bad enough, you could have fired him already and been on a look for an AD right now, had someone in interviewing this week. But instead, we're playing the 1 foot in, 1 foot out game that doesn't benefit anybody. It doesn't benefit Mack Rhoades. It doesn't benefit, well, kind of benefits Dave Aranda. It doesn't benefit Mack Rhoades. It doesn't benefit your athletic department. It doesn't benefit the players on this football team. And it definitely does not benefit the fans. And if you get in a situation where you get stuck with a coach that you don't necessarily want anymore because you put a 4-week window on this, like, are those 4 weeks going to outweigh the next at least 12 months? And for all those who wanted Dave Aranda to be fired during the season, this is a big win for you. And I know that's most of us, but I think a lot of us were thinking, yeah, Baylor's not going to do anything until after the season. This is a notch in your belt as to why you do that, as to why you get rid of a coach in the middle of a season sometimes. Because then things like this happen and your hands are tied. I just think it was an overall bad decision to put a window on this. Because first off, the dude needs help. Don't bracket him into a window, and don't bracket yourselves into a window, because it's the wrong one. Everyone else is hiring people 3 weeks from then, and you decided we're going to keep our athletic director out of the facility till 4 weeks from then. It's just not a good move. It's not a good move all the way around. And now Baylor fans are thinking, are we even going to make a bowl game? Is our coach going to be here by default? You know, this makes me think of early in my news days when I was working in Waco, and I was reporting on the news, and there was someone who was trying to help me become part of the sports department. And the person that was working there wasn't doing a great job, and they just kept renewing their contract because they didn't bother. They didn't want to go look for somebody else. Like, that's what we could be seeing right now with Dave Aranda. And there are some coaches out there, one in particular, who coaches in the state of Texas, who would be right near the top of my list, who actually has interest in coaching Baylor. But you're just going to let this thing renew. You're just going to run it back because you don't have your AD back in time. Like, college football is all about the cycle. There's a reason that coaches get fired the Sunday after their final game on a Saturday. No team waits a week and then fires a guy. No team thinks it over for a couple of days and then fires him, because we're on hours, even more so than days, and definitely not weeks when it comes to the end of the college football season. And Baylor has put themselves behind the 8 ball. They have set themselves up for failure. And let's be honest here before we get to the end of this. Like, I do hope Mack gets his help. And we talked with Pete about it on Friday, and I kind of agree with him. I think Mack will have another job somewhere in the NCAA. But let's be real with ourselves. Do you think Mack Rhoades comes out of this as the Baylor athletic director after cussing out a student athlete on the sideline, allegedly, and allegedly putting his hands around the neck of an assistant coach, and then getting another investigation that puts him on leave at the most important time of the season, and arguably the most important time of his career as it pertains to Dave Aranda and the college football playoff? Like, do you really think that this is going to be oh, no, it's actually turned out to be a nothing burger. He'll be back. Do we really think that's going to happen? You could have just fired him already, looked for an AD, had one in the next week and a half, and then that AD goes and finds a head football coach. Instead, you got none of it. You got all the negative headlines without the potential yet of changing your future. It's 1 foot in, 1 foot out as you're drowning in the river. Like, I just, you need 2 hands to get out of that river. You need 2 hands, and you're keeping one because you want to hold your cell phone in your pocket. The cell phone is already gone. You're drowning in a river. That's the best analogy I can come up with right now. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Of course, we drop it every weekday on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts as well. When we come back, let's talk about the player who is sticking up for Dave Aranda and how Dave Aranda is taking some of the blame for putting a little bit too much on this player's plate this year. Let's do it next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I'm winning a lot of money betting against the Celtics. As much as it pains me, okay, it helps. Even if you miss the start of the game or you're trying to ride that hot hand, looking at you, VJ Edgecombe, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score next to the fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when it's your team making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I said it on the post-game show on Saturday and a little bit in yesterday's show as well, but it seems like everybody's out on Dave Aranda, right? The fans definitely are. The donors are. Some of the alums, the former players, some current players, family members are out. And it feels like the only people that aren't out are Dr. Linda Livingstone and everyone above Dave in the athletic department. But that could include the players as well. RG3 had his Out of Pocket podcast drop on Monday morning and talked to Sawyer Robertson, presumably before this game on Saturday. To be fair, it could have been as early as the beginning of the season when RG3 was actually doing a game in Waco, and he's in Waco when he does this. So this could be a couple months old. I imagine, though, it is from the last week or so. And he had Sawyer Robertson on there, and he asked Sawyer about his relationship with Dave Aranda. Here is Sawyer sticking up for his coach.
How has Dave Aranda made you a better player and a better person, and what does he mean to you?
Dude shows up and goes to work and works his butt off every single day, and it's inspiring, honestly, because I'm sitting there and I'm like you go to war for guys like that. And so I think that's what you saw with our team and how we responded last year. That's our leader, and we see, the 3-9 year, the criticism that he took, all the stuff that he's been through, and it's inspired us to go out there and go to war for him. And I got so much respect for him, and I'm super thankful that he's my head coach.
This certainly comes out at a time when Dave Aranda probably needs that quite a bit, to have his star quarterback come out and say, that's a guy I want to go to war for. We call that in the court business a leading question, Robert. But clearly that was something that Sawyer had talked about with him at different times. And we know that RG3 is a big Dave Aranda guy. He doesn't want Dave Aranda to get fired. He's actually said publicly quite a few times over the last few years that he doesn't want Dave Aranda to get fired. So that could be some perfect timing there for the defense of Dave Aranda. But I know how it's gonna sound to a lot of Baylor fans right now. Like, okay, the coach goes to work. Fantastic. Right? That's the thing with Dave Aranda. The problem is not with Dave the guy. And some of you might disagree with me. I think a lot of you won't. Like, I think Dave Aranda is a good guy. I think he's a good man. He seems to be a good family man, good God-fearing man that does prepare champions for life, right? That's the Baylor thing. And he's got a lot of good kids on his team that are good, upstanding members of the community and all that good stuff. It's not a case of like Jimbo Fisher, of a guy who was just lazy and didn't want to put in the hours that a college football coach needs to put in. It's certainly not something like a Bobby Petrino situation. It's just that they're not winning football games, man. Like, that's it. It's just that they're not winning, and that the crowds are no longer there. They're no longer backing this program. And so, like, I believe everything Sawyer Robertson's saying, but more often than not, in the last 3 seasons, they go to war for Dave Aranda, and it's like the Battle of Shiloh, man. Feels like nobody wins, and there's just a lot of blood. Like, this is not the kind of battle you hang your hat on here. All right. We didn't even get to the tie at Bunker Hill. This has been straight up a lot of losses if you're going to war. And Dave was actually asked about Sawyer Robertson, and I thought it was a good question, and I think it was David Smoke who asked it, about putting so much on Sawyer, and to the point where we've said it so many times this season, he needs to play a perfect game for them to have a chance. And that honestly might be the biggest issue with this Baylor team in 2025.
I mean, without Sawyer, we're not able to win any games. We're not to be in any type of position to get to a bowl game or to be competitive or any of those things. And so I just think Sawyer always wants to do what's right, and he always wants to go above and beyond. And so I think kind of get it to where it's kind of refocused and, hey, man, just make this play. Let's execute this. I think to get it back to that level would be good for everybody.
That honestly might just be the biggest problem for this team when it's all said and done. Right? Because I know a lot of you talk about how the offense has not been good the last couple of weeks, but the defense has been horrible all season long. I think it all kind of boils down to that. Like, there were just too many games this year where you needed Sawyer to be perfect. Like, look at that SMU game, man. He throws for 400 yards. He throws the ball, I think it was 48 times. You needed him to be every bit of a top 5 quarterback in the nation just to win that game. Your offensive line has not been good. You haven't ran the ball effectively this season, and your defense can't stop anybody and can't turn the ball over. So, yeah, you have needed Sawyer to be absolutely perfect there. And I think that becomes the downfall of this team. It's not that there was a lack of talent. There's just not a lot of talent in the right places here. Last year, Sawyer did not need to be perfect. He was pretty damn good down the stretch. But when Baylor's season changed is when he no longer needed to be perfect for them to be in a game. Right? Like, they needed him to be perfect against Colorado and BYU just to be close. They needed him to be perfect against Iowa State, and he wasn't, and the team wasn't. And so, yeah, it's easy to look at 2 of the last 3 games. He's not played well at all. But it's a microcosm of this whole season. When Sawyer isn't at his best, you don't have a chance. And that's unfair. It kind of is, not to overly pump up Sawyer here. I'm a big fan and everything, and I think he's a good kid and a good leader, but like, that's kind of unfair on him. And some of the other guys performing on offense, the guys like Josh Cameron and Michael Trigg and some of these other guys, right? It's not fair on them that there's such a deficiency in every other facet of the game that if the quarterback isn't absolutely perfect, you can't win. And I think that's what it boils down to for this Baylor team, is they need the quarterback to be perfect every time out. And I'll give him some credit too. A lot of college football quarterbacks in the 2020s would want to leave that situation. Right. And you could see a bit of the writing on the wall with it last year at the beginning of the season of like, man, we just haven't built enough around me or the rest of this team that I'm going to be put in a position that's going to set me up for failure, set my team up for failure. And I think that's what's happened here. So, yeah, there probably is too much pressure on Sawyer Robertson. That is pretty much the fault of the coaching staff. And Sawyer is out there defending Dave and saying, I'd run through a brick wall for him. And I don't think he's the only player that would say that. from what we have heard this year and heard in the past. It doesn't seem like they're the only players that would say that. But yeah, that was a bit of a leading question. I don't think Sawyer was ever going to say, you know what, actually, he doesn't make me a good man. You know, I don't think Sawyer was going to be like, could we get James Franklin in here? You think? I don't think that's how he was going to answer the question. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Like, subscribe. #1 Baylor football show on YouTube. Part of the #1 sports podcast network in the world right here on Locked On Baylor. When we come back, let's talk about the tarps off thing because I loved it. I think a lot of people loved it in the stadium, outside the stadium. But there was one pretty important figure who clearly did not like it. And I'm not really sure why. Let's try and figure it out next on Locked On Baylor. But if you want to get your tarps off at the next Baylor football game that's at home against Houston in a couple of weeks, what you're going to have to do is find your tickets through Game Time. It's the only place I go to buy my tickets because I'm sick of all the other crap that comes with these other ticket sites, right? The endless queues, the hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. I don't want that. That's why I use Game Time. It's the app that gives advantage back to the fans. Easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices, no surprise fees. What you're seeing is what you're paying. I pull up Game Time, just a couple of taps. I can find Baylor Bears, Houston Cougar football tickets for as low as $25. It's faster, it's cheaper, it's less stressful than any other way I've ever bought tickets. Literally ever. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, all caps, all one word, for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. It is the tradition that is sweeping the college football world. You get a bunch of dudes together, you go to one section of the stadium, and you just rip those tarps off and start waving them. I don't like when Texas Tech does it because Texas Tech is really good. But for Oklahoma State, for UCLA, for UMass, and yes, unfortunately for the Baylor Bears, when you embrace the suck, you have a bunch of bros meet in the same section, and you whip those tarps off, man. And it was actually electric at McLane the other night. They had like 2 full sections filled. It was one of the biggest tarps off sections I've ever seen. And they're getting into it. The place is getting loud. It's right before halftime. Baylor's still kind of in the game, right? When they cut it to 28-17 right before the half. Those tarps off fellas are just losing it. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, this is great. This is great for Baylor football right now. You can think it's juvenile and Neanderthalic. That's not a word. But objectively, it's great for that atmosphere to finally inject some life into it. And Baylor Athletics was leaning into it, by the way. Probably a little bit too much for a team that lost the game by 27 points, but they've been posting all these videos on all their social media accounts of like, man, look at this. Isn't this great? Guys being dudes. Like, they're embracing it because it's a cool thing and people like it. Except for the old people I talked about in the postgame show. When my friends went over there to meet some other friends and were so excited to see the tarps off thing happening naturally around them organically, except for the old people behind them saying, oh, this sucks. It's like, seriously? So you don't want a good atmosphere. That's what you don't want. By saying that and getting fans kicked out of the section, you're saying you don't want a good atmosphere. Everyone else liked it. Everyone else except for Dave Aranda, of all people. He got asked it in his Monday morning press conference, and he gives a long, bizarre answer.
I did see that. We had there's some family or some close friends from Redlands, where I'm from, that came to the game, and they went to the same high school as my wife and I and everything, and so they got in town on Friday, and they've been to a couple games, whether it's bowl games and the game in Arlington and all that. So they were at this one, and I guess he went up there, and one of our guests went up there and took a shirt. He was so proud of that. I go, bro, that's, so I guess it happens.
They asked him, like, what does that do for you guys? What's it like seeing that energy? And his last thing is, so I guess it happens. He doesn't say anything about, like, his friend being 45, 50 years old and doing it. He's just like, yeah. And I was just, it didn't get me, like, really frustrated or anything, but I was like, really? Like, we've been begging for a good atmosphere for years. You get asked about it every week. And all the time you say, we got to earn this and we'd love to have people out there. In fact, 2 weeks ago, you talked about how the fans should be showing up for all these players that are leaving it out on the line. And then when something does happen, when there is a cool injection of atmosphere into McLane Stadium, it's, I guess it happens. With that stank look on your face. Like, really? Like, again, we have wanted an atmosphere for so long. And here's your 5-4 team just getting their behinds kicked 10 ways to Sunday, again on your home field. And like, we're going to downplay this. We're not going to say, man, that was a cool thing. I was so happy that our students stuck with us. They're obviously the lifeblood of our fan base and our university. And I know it's been a tough season and they're making the most of it out there. Like, I think that really had a good effect on the players. Nope. It was, these things happen, I guess. I'm reminded of, I tweeted this video out from Bar Rescue the other night when I was talking about this whole text exchange and my friends getting kicked out of the section. And it was real quick. It was this Bar Rescue episode where John Taffer sends in Frankie Borelli from Barstool on Recon at a pizza place, and he orders one of every pizza, and he's ordering pitchers and shots, and he's handing out pizza slices and everything. And this is a place that is hemorrhaging money, and the owners in there are so mad that this guy ordered 11 pizzas. They make him prepay. They cuss him out. They say he's an a-hole, and Taffer just loses it. He's like, you are begging for business, and here's the best customer that comes in all night, and you call him an a-hole. Like, that's kind of how I feel about the people who don't like the tarps off thing, right? Like, again, you could think it's juvenile. I understand that. I don't know if I'd be up there doing it. I actually probably would have. That sounds like fun. And I've still got enough of a body that I could do that. But at the same time, on the other hand, we are desperate for Baylor to have a legit atmosphere again. Like, this is the best fan thing that has happened to them all season, maybe in the last 2 or 3 years. The best fan development we have seen. And they don't even like it. Like, beggars cannot be choosers. And I think that's why a lot of you liked it. A lot more of you liked it than actually went up and ripped your tarps off, right? But we like it because we needed something like that. We needed fans to show they care a little bit. But no, not everyone liked it. Not even some of the most important people in Baylor football didn't like it. So, what are you going to do? Don't expect tarps off energy if you don't like when the tarps are off. That's what I'll say. And here's how I'll end it. If you're going to shut down tarps off, you know what's going to happen to this fan base? We're going to have to put the tarp back on. Just like the memes that everybody tweets at you. This is Bear country. If you don't want the tarps coming off the fans, you're going to have that tarp on the seats. Just saying. Let me know what you think. Did you like it? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton. We're on the path towards 5,000 subscribers. We're already the #1 Baylor football show on YouTube, and we have you to thank for that. You guys have been great. You continue to come along even when things are frustrating and seem like they're hopeless. You continue to come to this show, and I appreciate it. I absolutely love doing this show for you guys. So thank you so much for making it your first listen today and every day. As always, put your thoughts in the comment section below, and we will see you tomorrow on a Wicker Wednesday on another edition of your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.